And good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in on this four-part series that we here at CEO Effectiveness are kicking off, starting this Friday and pushing forward into each Friday over the next 4 weeks. So I am Dr. Collura, and I'm going to be tackling today's topic, right? So today's topic has to do with organizational culture, right? And it is such a vital and important topic that so many of us who are in the entrepreneur space or in the C-suite, we talk about culture more often than not. What we're really talking about is a set of shared beliefs, right? A value system. The thing about culture, though, is that it's fluid. It's constantly changing, right? So we can have this notion of, I want my company or corporate culture to consist of X, Y, or Z. But how it actually plays out is what makes the difference, right? So if we understand that culture in of itself is defined by folks who are living it, breathing it, and carrying it out on a daily basis within an organization, there has to be something that is a defining component outside of shared values, right? There has to be practices, things that are being put into play on a regular basis. So we here at CEO Effectiveness, when we think about culture, it is synonymous with alignment, right? And the question there is, okay, so Dr. Collura, alignment, what does that mean? Oh, it's a great question. So when we talk about alignment, there's three components, and I'm going to talk about this now. And once I'm done giving this description, I'm going to pause and going to move to a slide that breaks it down a little bit more and let you study it for a few seconds. But when we're talking about these three components, what we're referring to first and foremost is the organizational pillars, right? What founded the organization? What's the organization's constitution, right? Going back to what the original intent, right? What the mission statement was, that 40,000 foot view of what that organization is to represent, having a very clear picture of that, right? So that's number one. Number two, our ideal client. Who is it that we want to work with? And more importantly, what is the experience we want them to have when they're interacting with our company? What does that consist of? What do we want them to walk away, both emotionally and psychologically, feeling? Are they happy? Are they content? Are they spreading the word about what we're doing and the great work that we do? So is there an alignment between what the organization was founded off of and then what's actually playing out for the end user? And then number three is our team members. Do we have the right team members to carry out those organizational pillars to make sure we can fulfill the client's needs? And not just what the client thinks he or she needs, but truly what we want them to have and feel empowered with when they're interacting and doing business with our company, right? So we've got three components there. There's organizational pillars, there's the client interface and the client experience, and then there's the team members. So now the question is, okay, so I understand that there's three components, but what does that have to do with active culture day in and day out? Well, here's the beautiful thing. When we think about what our culture should be, it is how those three align, and the space in which they all touch and interact, that is what represents your active culture as an organization. So if there is any sort of challenge that exists, whether it's from an organizational pillar, the team members that are doing fulfillment and are the life force of that company, and ultimately the clients that we serve, that there should be a very clear alignment between all three of those in that shared space, which truly does define the active culture. When we think about having shared values, right? I want a company that is rooted in transparency and honesty and optimism. Those are all wonderful and great, but how's it actually playing out? It plays out when all three of those components are aligned. And if those three are all aligned, you're going to get the experience and the growth and the effectiveness that you want your organization to have. So with that being said, I'm going to switch over. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a few seconds to take a look at that slide that I referenced to just a moment ago. Okay, so after taking a look at that diagram, you have a much clearer sense, right, as to what I'm referring to, right? So where those three circles overlap, intersect, that space that exists right there, that is your active culture, which represents your organizational culture, right? And so it's very important to keep a solid alignment, and the larger that circle grows where all three overlap, the more efficient and the more effective your organization will become. Now, Is it push button easy? No. It is a constant process of checks and balances, right? So you want to make sure that you have a pulse on all three of those. So three things that we want you to be able to take away, right? Coming off of this particular portion of organizational culture in our webinar series. So first and foremost, I want you to do this. So take 10 seconds, right? Define what the life force is of your organization. What do you stand for, right? So go deeper than just the mission statement. What is the impact that you want to have on the world? What does that look like? What's that grandiose vision, and how is it being carried out? Number two, define the ideal client, right? What is that target market? You may already have a very clear understanding, right? But it's one thing to identify the ideal client, and it's another thing to be able to identify the ideal client experience. What is the experience from soup to nuts, A to Z, that you want your client to have and to feel when they're interacting with your company and doing business with you? And number three, are your team members equipped? When we think about that alignment factor, right, and making sure that those organizational pillars, as well as the client experience and those team members, do your team members have the right stuff to carry out what that life force is of the organization, what that ideal client experience is? If they do, keep doing what you're doing. If you feel like there's some challenge areas, which most of us experience, then give us a call, right? That is what we are here for. That's what we specialize in. So thank you all so very much for your time. Please check us out at www.ceoeffectiveness.com. This is Dr. Gino Collura. Make it a fantastic Friday and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you so very much.